Okay, I'm doing my best to try to keep these videos down to 20 minutes or less, but in this case it may run a little bit more, and that's mainly because there's a lot to do with the Coyote, and a lot of it's with routing, and it's the way I did it on my car. Doesn't mean that everybody has to do it this way. It's more just suggestions and ideas that I had, and trust me, I changed my mind 3 or 4 times as I'm laying things out. So if this is a little bit longer this time, I apologize up front, but I'm sure there's a lot of content that will help you out in the future. So we'll get to it. I've shortened up the one lead that I mentioned that was bugging me, that actually goes back to the engine plug. So this was shortened. I brought that back to close to the PCM, and the other one that comes off of the PCM, which I'll show you, it's more towards the front of the car now. And then we had a lead that came out here, which was this bundle here. This bundle and this bundle end up going inside to the cockpit, inside your, into the driver's cockpit. So we had 10 inches here of 2 looms coming out. So I wanted to sanitize this because I'm going to put all of these in one. I'm only going to have one harness go in. So I have now stripped all of this back, and this is secure. I've got a tie strap, and then I'll put the loom over it again. So they'll all come out at this vicinity right here. So they'll all come into, instead of having 2 looms, we're just going to have 1 loom like this, and this will all be in 1 loom right here. So all this is going to get kind of put in basically in with this one, and I'll probably bring them out somewhere in here, so the DLC will be separate, and then the other one is for the throttle pedal. So they'll come into the harness, or excuse me, into the chassis to this point, and then I'll split them off, because some of the transmission ones I don't need, because this is a manual. I don't really need the tack, and I really don't need the oil pressure, but they're going to be inside the cockpit for future use if needed. So that's what I'm doing here. Okay, I know this is kind of a spaghetti mess right now, but this will be the busy end. This is still just in a mock-up stage, but I shortened my one lead that I just detested, which was this one here, and this will actually get pinned up to the body here. This is the power. This isn't secure, it's just temporary here, but that's how it's going to go. And then this will just get tie wrapped up into here. This is the mass air, which I'll run up there. This is the fuel pump and the fan, run those. But the main thing was to keep this kind of clean back in here. So what I've done is moved wires and harnesses and lengthened and shortened where they came out. And now this is going to sit up here. And this is the one that goes to the engine compartment right here, which is down here. So this is the only one that's going to go into the engine compartment now. I'll de-pin this, the DLC plug, to feed it through a hole, which I'm going to drill. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to put a 1-inch hole. I have grommets for it. All right, this is where the antenna came out. And I'm going to relocate the antenna hole, hopefully to the inside a little bit here. I still have some room. And I'm going to bring my wiring loom in that controls the pedal, the DLC, and power, which I remember routing into one. I will have to de-pin the DLC and the pedal, feed the wires, and then repin it. But this will be a clean install, kind of a nice straight shot here, and I'll get started. I got to go out to 1 inch, and I'm using a step drill. Okay, I got my caliper set to just about 1 inch. So I'm going to ream the rest of this a little bit to get a nice clean hole, clean that up, deburr it, All right, I've got a 1-inch hole here now. I basically took the deburring tool and went around and cleaned up the outside edge here, and I'll clean the inside edge as well. I still think I have enough room to put the antenna lead right in here. I'll have to come up with a solution on a drill. All right, I'm going to get ready to fish the loom that goes inside, which is right here. One harness. I put all the wires into one. That's going to go into this hole, and then I'll put a grommet. I'll split the grommet and then put it around the outside, and then I'll seal it with also some dum-dum. And then this is a smaller 3/8 diameter hole that I'll have a grommet, and I'm going to change the grommet basically from the antenna and put a smaller grommet, and then I'll dum-dum that and seal that as well. And both of those will still go in the engine compartment, and that way I can keep things a little bit cleaner. So we'll see how it goes. And this is everything into the cockpit DLC, throttle, and the needed leads to get going. So this was the hole that I drilled. I fed everything through here. It's now inside the cockpit, plus I put my antenna in a grommet right back here. So this is pretty much finalized. This will just sit up real here nice and tight, out of the way. I'll have it zip tie and secured to the chassis. I've got the pedal bracket adapter from PBH that will bolt on right there. So we'll get some, I'm just going to get these started. So this leg here is going to get trimmed off. So I'm going to cut, and get it probably back as far as I can here. Maybe I'll follow this seam right here for right now. I can always cut more off. So I'm going to use this as a guide right now. Cut along that seam, and we'll see what happens. And if I have to trim more, I will. So I will be back. I went ahead and trimmed the pedal, so this will be able to bolt up here now. Move that out of the way. There we go. So this will get mounted right here. I was going to trim at this gusset line, but I decided I could always trim outwards. So basically cut this tab off right here, this little ear, and you could have left a little bit more, but really there's no strength out here. And I wanted to leave these extra gussets here. Not that it makes a difference, I guess, but and then I just kind of sanded this up and trimmed these so they're smooth, so I don't have any sharp edges. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt this thing up now. Raise that up a bit. I know the slots on the mount itself back here are slotted a little bit. I'm going to raise this up to give myself a little bit more clearance to miss the carpet without having to, or I'm going to end up trimming the pedal one way or the other. Okay, all I can raise it is about a little more than 1/16 of an inch, so I went ahead and did that. So we'll see what kind of clearance that gives me here. Maybe trimming the side of this pedal right here so that this kind of misses the carpet area. So I'm going to run this back. I'm going to strip this harness all the way back including the DLC, because I'm going to mount the DLC on a tab somewhere right here, maybe coming off these two ground screws or this plate, just to have a little separate tab. And then I'm going to put this, run this on the other side of this harness right here, and I'll have that, this will be coiled up until I can find the pin ends that go into here, so I can diet the harness and have a nice neat trim harness. This will be coiled up, and then the DLC will be depinned and cut back to here, as well as the harness that's going to go up to the ignition switch, which is right up here and over here. I don't know if this will see over here to my clutch switch. That's what's going to go in here. I'm going to take this pin off, plug off, and put a different plug on here. Okay, working inside the cockpit, gonna finalize up this wiring. I've taken 5 feet of wiring out of the pedal loom, and it'll get attached up here. I'm gonna route this back up behind here, but there's ample wire to go there, because this will all be tied up underneath back here. This is the 4 wires that I need. This is the start, run, start a request. The yellow one will actually get tied into the the red and green striped wire, because that's in run, hot in run and start. And then the starter request, this is actually looks white, but it's white with pink, and that'll get tied into here, and that'll get wrapped up underneath here. And then these 2 are from my clutch switch, which I have a fitting up here on the firewall that this will go to. Let me pan over here. So that will go to this switch. I'm going to put a new plug on here, so I'll have it as a disconnect instead of hardwiring it all in. At least at this point. I could hardwire it, I haven't decided. So that'll take care of this section. These wires are for an automatic transmission, as well as the oil pressure and attack lead, which I have actually, I've actually taken the tack lead and spliced it out on the other side as well. So this is just going to get bundled up for future. I don't really think there needs to be that much bundled up. I may terminate it there and cut off another 2 feet of wire, and that'll be stashed up underneath the console. And what I'm going to work on now is shortening the DLC and cutting and depinning this so that it will have about 2-3 inches of play, and then it'll suck back here, and actually the DLC will get positioned right back here. So that's what I'm going to be tackling right now, and then I'll get this all laid out again and come back and go over it one more time. All right, I pulled back the harness just to the cockpit or passenger side to do the splicing of my harness. So here's the DLC. So now this is all going to get fed through. This will get wrapped on the other side when I'm done. All right, I just finished tying in the wires to the ignition switch. We have our hot with key on and start, yellow, which was basically, this was split apart and then soldered and then wrapped, and I depinned these again just to give me some access of room. And then we have the blue white, which is the starter request, is in the white and pink wire. And the neutral switch I tied into my extra plug that I had, which was basically hanging here before, and splice those with the terminals. My throttle pedal is now connected, and my DLC is going to get mounted on a tab right here. So hopefully all this will be done soon. All right, the remaining harness is the excess wires for the automatic transmission, oil pressure, and also the tack, which I have, like I said before, I have a lead on the other side for my tack light, or my shift light. And this is just going to get now finished up putting in the loom. I'll just tape the end of the loom, and it's going to get rolled up and tied up in here, and the interior is then finished. Finished the wiring on the interior. This is the DLC from the Coyote. It's mounted to this trim piece, steel plate here next to the chassis DLC. Harness comes in through here, routes up here to the throttle pedal, which is secure and working. And then this harness, kind of right here, goes up to the ignition switch up here and is tied into the green, the red with green stripe for run and start hot all the time. And then there's a white pink that is the starter request. The neutral safety switch then continues through that harness down over to the side, and I've tied in kind of right, let's see here, right here, and I've got it heat shrunk and kind of tabbed into the accessory side of the neutral safety switch or clutch depress switch, whatever you want to call it, for the start circuit. So that should be finalized. I have the other wires in the harness that I'm not using, transmission upshift, common shift, and downshift, as well as the oil pressure, and the tack lead is heat shrunk at the ends, and then in the harness wound up. There's about, I think about 2 feet wound up in here underneath. And then I do have my tack lead over there on the other side. That's going to run my tack light, shift light, because I can just pull it off the wire that I have into the old ECM on the 4.6. So pretty much this side, this inside work is done. All right, my tack shift light is wired into my old ECU right here. So I have enough wire left in the harness, so I basically spliced into the tack lead. So this is another tack lead, so I'll have this on this side so I don't have to run my shift light all over. And the hot and the ground's already hooked up, so I'll be taking that off, and I'll run this, tie this up and back in here, and that'll run my shift light. And then the rest of the harness will get tucked back in through here and, you know, wide off, as I mentioned earlier, to clean things up. All right, I depinned the fan fuse block because I wanted the wires to come straight down. I didn't want them to come out the side when it's in the chassis, and it just gave me a cleaner look. So basically took the cover off, drilled a 5/8 hole, and depinned this lead. So this is going to go up through the bottom. I can just leave that sit on there. And then this is going to get pinned back in here. And to get these out, it's not too hard, but it's just a little bit of a lesson. So we'll stick that back in there. So to get these out, you have this block that's kind of just like holding this in. So this has got to come out. And then on the side are the little plastic tabs. Like, I'm just going to go to this one right here. I hope that this will show up. But we're going to poke this one to the inside. So basically you kind of stick it in between the connector and the tab. You pull the tab, wait a minute, kind of pull the, pull the plastic tab over and then pull down, and then that releases the clip, and you can pull your connector out, and then you just slide them back in and snap them. And then you're going to put your lock back in. And I went ahead and I marked this just so I make sure I get it in the same way as I took it out. And then push that back down. There. And then that block is in there, and then I'll go ahead and set this in the chassis, snap the cover on, and I'll get this plugged in. So this can actually go, and because this is going to be facing forward, there's my mounting tab. I want the hole to go to the back just because I don't want to see it. And there. So that's how that'll go back in the chassis. So I'll go do that right now. Okay, so I'm back up here. So this is going to slide down into the bracket, and this is going to get pinned. I'm going to go ahead and shorten this lead on the outside. I'm going to tie the Coyote fan into the fan lead wire, not the battery feed, to this. Because basically, from the CCRM out on the opposite side here, the CCRM sends current here, goes through the circuit breaker, out, and to the fan. So, I mean, I could do it either way, but I'm going to set it on the fan side only. When I go out, I'll video that. But so basically, the Coyote's going to control the fan. It's still going to send current back when the fan's live. It's going to send it back to the CCRM, but it's going to just deadhead. And if that opens up and the Coyote's on and the CCRM is on at the same time, it's like positive to positive. It's not going to make any difference. It's like having two hot leads together. It's kind of redundant, like on a fan circuit when you have a dead man switch and you ground it and you got current here and current here. It doesn't care. So that's how I'm going to do that. So this is going to basically get pinned in down here. Okay, and then that loom will come down here, so that's enough slack. That'll let me get through there. So let's go over here to the side. Okay, so I'm going to rewrap this. So this is the CCRM feed. Basically, it's two red and orange from the CCRM. Actually, these two wires right here go into this connector, which sends power to the breaker, out the breaker, back through this lead, down into the harness that I have that goes out to the fan right here. So I'm going to break into, like I said, the fan lead, which is this side. Here, let me get this moved around here. It's this one right here, and I'm going to connect my Coyote fan lead here with a plug. I'm going to splice into this, and I'm going to put a quick disconnect plug on this end as well. Alright, what I'm doing to make this cap lower that goes over the one of the PCM harnesses is basically I just cut down the side edge, and then I'm applying heat slowly, and then I'm basically gonna fold. Well, I just did this. I'm just folding them down flat, and then I'll probably fold this one over the top. I do have plastic glue that'll keep this together once they're down, and I sand them smooth. And all right, this is the cover that I repaired, and now it's snapped on there, and now I'll tape it kind of like this just to kind of help protect this, and this way my air filter will sit over here a lot nicer without having to run into a bump. This one doesn't affect anything, but that's the finished product. I'm going to be mounting my O2s up in here, so these plugs will kind of get tied up to here, but I went ahead and made a bracket. So this is a bracket, so the O2 will get plugged, the two pegs on the O2 sensors will get plugged into this bracket, and then I welded a 1/4 bolt, and you can still get the flat head of a wrench on there if you had to get this off, but this is going to sit up. I drilled a hole here in the tab, so this is going to sit up like that, and it fits in between the two shoulders, or these two edges here on either side, and then it'll get bolted here, and then the O2s will get snapped and secured up in there. And then I'm also going to have all this stuff wrapped with some heat shield. Okay, this is the test with the O2 sensors kind of plugged in their harness and into my bracket right here. And this will just be another test fit, and then I'll wrap them. So this goes up this way, and then that's just going to sit right in there. And then I'll wrap this, and this shroud here will get tucked back a little bit more towards the driver's side. Okay, I have the O2 sensors secure now. This is loose enough to where there's enough flex. There's the bracket that I made right here. It's bolted to the transmission, and this is heat wrapped for about I don't know, 8 or 10 inches up there to keep, not that we're going to have an issue with heat from the exhaust, but just to make sure that that got covered. So that's done, and then I'm going to swing over to the other side. Again, the VSS, excuse me, the OSS sensor, and then this is the backup switch, and it's wrapped and tied in to its own little harness, which actually gets attached to the top. So as far as I'm concerned right now, the bottom here is done, and I'll keep moving on. Okay, and then on the top for the transmission harness, part of that is right here into this plug. This is actually sending the signal to the lights. This is sending the power to the reverse switch. The other two are for the OSS. So that's in its separate loom, which is tied up back here. I'll snip these off. And then I've also heat wrapped the O2 sensor harness along the back of the head, right above the exhaust. So just in case there's any kind of heat reflection that might become an issue, that's wrapped. I'll be routing my fuel pump wire down the driver's side, so I'm in the fender well. I pulled out the big plug, and I'm going to drill a hole here, put a grommet in it, and run my wire that's going to go all the way to the back through the grommet, and then follow the harness. And I'm actually going to end up putting another relay in the back that will be run off the inertia switch, so that if the inertia switch gets killed or popped, it'll kill supply to the pump from the relay that's back there, even though we have a relay that's on the other side. All right, now I'm just pulling the wire. I've wrapped this in my split loom weave, which I like a lot better, and it's a lot easier to pull, but wrapping it's kind of a bugger. This is the pump wire, fuel pump wire, that's through a rubber grommet that was drilled, hole that was drilled in, rubber grommet put in, and then I'll put the chassis bulkhead fitting back up in here, tighten that down, and then I'll put a little zip tie to this and hold it all in place, and I'll call it good under here. I'm testing the inertia switch because I'm going to use the power from the inertia switch to come in. That's coming from the CCRM and then coming out, and it will go to trip a relay that I'll have for the fuel pump, and then that'll send the power from the relay to the pump. It's kind of redundant in the relays, but that way I can be sure I have control of it through the Coyote. So all right, go ahead and hit the key. Okay, so my test light lit up, which means I have power coming through the inertia switch because it comes in on the green yellow. There we go. Now it's off. So that means the circuit's dead, so that'll kill the relay, which will kill power to the pump. So that's how I'm going to wire it back here. So I'll take the pump driver module out, use the wires from here to control the relay, and then my fuel pump lead right here will go to the relay, and then from there to the pump. Okay, looking at a wiring diagram for the fuel system, power comes from the CCRM through the inertia switch, which we just checked, and then out of the inertia switch to the fuel pump module. So that's how it gets its power, because it's regulated through the PCM. So we're going to use the inertia switch to power. The outside of the inertia is going to go to terminal 86 on a relay that I'll have back there. The fuel pump power is going to come in from the Coyote PCM to 30, and then 87 is going to take the red and black, which is the positive side of the pump, to energize the pump, and then the pump will just be grounded off the brown and pink. And I'll go back to the chassis to show all this, and that way we'll be kind of be redundant because we have a relay controlling a relay, but the inertia switch will cut the fuel pump relay off on the Coyote in the back of the trunk, so that there'll be no power to the pump as well. Well, power comes in from the CCRM on the green and yellow striped wire, and then goes through the switch and then out on the pink and black, which comes over to the fuel pump module, which I've taken out. And that's what basically then triggers the pump to run on and off through the PCM. The red and black striped wire is the pump positive wire. The brown and pink is the pump negative wire. So we are going to use the pink and black from here. This is going to come back over, and I'm going to hardwire in a relay module back here, a base, and that's going to come in on the terminal 86 side, the pink and black on the 86 side. 85 side is going to go to ground here along with these wires. So that'll be grounded. That'll ground the relay and energize it. When the key gets turned on, power will go through here, energize the relay, and then my pump from the PCM is going to come in on pin 30, and then coming out to the pump will be in the black, or excuse me, the red with the black striped wire, which goes directly to the pump. And then the black wire, or the brown and pink wire is the negative side of the pump, and that will be grounded, and I can ground that here as well. So when this trips, it'll kill this relay that I will have in here, and it will stop flow. No, even if this is still hot, it won't matter. It'll kill power to the pump. Pump power from the PCM ground, trigger wire from the inertia switch, and fuel pump lead. So key's going to go on, and we should have pump power here. Go ahead. Oh, wait a minute, we're on ground here. Right there. Okay, turn the key off. And then the pump killed. Okay, there's our pump lead. We're going to do our test. There it goes. Then it killed the pump. And then we'll engage the pump. case of an accident, it shuts it off, but yet the PCM is still supplying power because it doesn't know any better. So we're done. This is going to get secured up behind here, and I'll call this project done. I've got my battery harness routed, the starter cable, so you can kind of see it back in there. It's foil wrapped, and then it comes around the front, and it's in hard plastic. So it's hard plastic here underneath, and it's spaced off the bottom of the pan, goes around the filter. This is loose right now because I'm going to tie it back to that stud right there. And once I get the reservoir in for the power steering, and then they both go up there, and the ground is over here on the motor mount. I got two grounds, one to the battery, and then the other one's going to go to the chassis. And I'm going to check the starting circuit. So, okay, go ahead and try to start it. Okay, turn it off. Now step on the clutch and start it. Try to start it. It's the one on the left. And try to start it. Perfect. Okay, now let off the clutch. Now try to start it again. Perfect. Okay. Okay, go ahead and try spin it over. Oh my God, all my rags popped out. Go ahead, do it again. Okay, good. We're good to go. I'll finish putting plugs, coils, and fuel, and we'll see what happens. Okay, I'm going to get right to it. I got a package delivery the other day, which I'm going to go over in a second, but for the meantime, I did a complete chassis electrical test, fuel pump relay that I put in the back, running off the CCRM through the inertia switch. That works. The pump works. The inertia switch works. It does its job. The engine cranks as it's supposed to. Clutch depressed. I get contact, released. No contact. We did a test engine spin, which you probably saw. Either I have it before or after this. So that works. And everything sounds good. Everything's functioning like it's supposed to. Throttle works. So what I'm going to go over today and accomplish, as well as putting fuel in the tank and then checking my fuel pressure lines to make sure I don't have any leaks, is I got a package of pins. And the pins I wanted were the pins I ordered that I was looking for the 16-pin connector that I needed to shorten the run. Too long. It just pains me. So these are the Molex pins. 2.8 pins, and then the standard, which is about 1.5. And those are the ones that are going in to this connector, basically on this side. I have pins for male and female, but I'm going to get rid of pretty much from here, all of this to here. So this run is going to go from here to here. This is coming from the fuse block, which I have inside. This is power and everything. So this will get tucked here. This is my fan lead, which I'm going to put a quick single pin plug on right here. This is the fuel pump lead that they gave. This is the fan, so that'll go there. And then the ground I have is a purple 10 gauge with a black stripe that I'm writing on it, so I'll note that. And this will get cleaned up because now I can shorten it and tidy it when I do what I need to. And then I actually sourced my own 10 gauge, or excuse me, 12 gauge purple with a red stripe wire, and this is going from here, all one piece, I got extra, all the way back to my relay. So now I don't need to splice it. I'm going to put this right on a pin, and it's going to go right in this block. And then I've got them both loomed, and they all follow a loom, and they come up through here, and they go along underneath over the top of the radiator along with my wrapped battery power lead, and I'll go over that stuff later. So right now I'm going to get busy in shortening this and repinning this plug here and get rid of all this stuff. Cut this out, and then I can say that this is actually done. The test we did yesterday was excuse me, complete. We tested everything, and I was very pleased, very happy, but this has always been kind of a pain in my backside. So once I get that done, then it'll just be a matter of putting fuel in the tank and then pressurizing the system, and hopefully, as I say, no leak is a good leak, and that's what I hope to find on the fuel pump. And excuse me, that's what I hope to find on the fuel system. Okay, I have the harness unwrapped right now, at least the loom. So this is probably going to sit in this position here, and I want to make sure I have room for any kind of repair. So I'm probably going to cut these, I'm going to guess somewhere right about here. And that'll still let me some flex here, some flex up and down. I can unplug this. And then when I get done, this is going to be strapped to the chassis, and then I'll tie wrap this so that it'll sit back here. But at least it'll be back out of the way, and I won't have this big loop. So that's my game of attack right there. So I'm going to eliminate at least probably 18 to 20 inches of extra harness that I don't need. Okay, I just finished up sanitizing the wiring on the PCM chassis. So what I was doing earlier was taking, and then I cut, well, there's about 20 inches here of wire that was shortened out of this loom, out of this pack here that goes to the PCM. So now it's basically, I have room to pull this down, put a strap up here. This is secure. This is the fuel pump lead. It's wrapped. This is my ground for the chassis and the battery. This is my fan lead, which has got a plug on it. And all this can be taken apart. So I have ample room to work on here and move things around. This is, and I just sanitized it the best I could. So the only thing I have to do now is route the mass air. But for the most part, I'm happy with this. All right, I want to thank everybody who watched that lengthy video on my electrical issues and some of the solutions I came up with on my New Edge Coyote swap project. So thanks for sticking with me so far. There's still more to come. I will give you a hint. It runs, and you'll have to stay tuned for that and to see what happens. So I want to give a shout out to my newfound YouTube buddy Saul back at MCSE Green Wheels in Chi-Town. So I want to thank you, buddy, for sticking with me and trading off information back and forth. Appreciate what you give, and hopefully you can take mine with a grain of salt. Again, if you like what you saw, please hit the like button. If you want to subscribe, although I don't do this on a daily basis, hit the subscribe, and when I do something new, it'll be out there for you. So again, thanks a lot, and stay tuned for future episodes.